Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you for tuning in for another edition of Truthbuster News. It is November 1st, 2017. And as we survive another day in the matrix in which we live, while the propagandist mainstream media is still covering the terrorism attack that occurred in Manhattan yesterday afternoon, I had put out a video that leads to this being another false flag attack. And it still remains to be open. And I will do some follow-up reports on this as time goes by. But what I want to talk with you this evening is, we all heard through social media their own proclamation over the last few months. It started getting coverage in the summer, and that is in 3 days. Antifa is going to commence their own version of terror called the Day of Rage. And this is one of the topics I was going to report on last evening, but I shifted over to what happened in New York to try to give you some insight on that situation. But as I thought to myself as I was at work this afternoon and making mental notes in preparation for the report I'm giving to you now, I've heard from various outlets not just in the alternative media, but also just independent, everyday people that are sick of the bullshit. Has been covering this very issue, and they've gotten wind that Antifa are going to be dressed as you and I. They're not going to be in their communist, militant, black outfit so that they can be recognized. When this happens, you're gonna have to keep a sharp eye out. Keep your eyes and your ears open. Be aware of your surroundings, no matter where you live, where you are going or coming from on that day. If you're in an environment where there is going to be a mass amount of people, whether it be at a shopping mall, in your downtown area of where you live, or even on the street driving by, be extremely careful. And I put that out there because not only have I seen what people have put out of how they're going to be dressed as you and I, but also the tactics they are practicing and the weapons they have been trying to acquire, purchase, gather by any means they can get them. I heard that they want to get full, assault rifles. From handguns to shotguns. And other types of weapons, especially a PVC pipe dipped in shit. Feces. So that when they stab it into your body, depending how well your immune system is, if you don't have a very strong immune system, whether you're old or young or what race ever you might be, the bacteria from the shit is going to infect your body, and whatever infection you get from that, you could potentially die. And that is one of their motives. That is one of their operandi. These are the people that George Soros is paying to commit these very acts. And I'm just not pulling that out of the rabbit hat here. There's some credibility to back that up. I started digging in a little more this evening, and upon doing so, like always, the communist, liberal, socialist, elite, propagandist, strong-armed disinformation organization for the New World Order and the deep state and the shadow government, the mainstream media started disproving and debunking the claim, as they call it, that Antifa is not going to do anything of the sort, except it is going to be a peaceful rally nationwide. They also demonize the alternative media, such as Alex Jones and others, for calling it rumors and conspiracy that they are going to do these things that have been brought forth. Now, this is from their main source of information for Antifa. It's called resistfascism.org. And at the very head of the head graphic on their directive for November 4th, in big, bold and black letters, it says, "No, in the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. November 4th, it begins. The Trump-Pence regime must go." From the call on November 4th, 2017, we will gather in the streets and public squares of cities and towns across this country. At first, many thousands declaring that this whole regime is illegitimate and that we will not stop until our single demand is met. This nightmare must end. Our protest must grow day after day and night after night. Thousands becoming hundreds of thousands and millions determined to act to put a stop to the grave danger that the Trump-Pence regime poses to the demand that this whole regime be removed from power. To the person who just posted a comment and asked if this is live, yes, this is live. I'm just shooting this from my car. So, yes, this is a live broadcast. In addition to that, what I just read to you there, Zero Hedge wrote an article. On November 4th, the Antifa insurgency against Donald Trump and his supporters will begin. Are we about to see chaos in the streets in major cities all over America? Antifa and other radical leftist groups are promising that a series of protests will begin on November 4th. That will never end until the Trump-Pence regime is removed from power. And as you will see below, Antifa has openly and publicly embraced violence, and that the DHS says they have engaged in domestic terrorism. Hopefully these protests will fizzle out after a few weeks, because political organizations that believe in the necessary use of violence have no place in our society. And that is a quote from the Department of Homeland Security. On November 4th, 2017, we will gather in the streets and public squares in cities and towns across this country. At first, many thousands declaring this must grow day after day, night after night, thousands becoming hundreds of thousands and then millions, determined to act to put a stop to the grave danger that the Trump-Pence regime poses to the world, demanding this whole regime be moved from power. Our actions will reflect the values of respect for all of humanity and the world we want, in stark contrast to the hate, the bigotry, and the Trump-Pence fascist regime. Our determination to resist and not back down until it will compel the whole world to take note. Every force and faction in the power structure will be forced to respond to our demand. The cracks and divisions among the powers already evident today will sharpen and widen as we draw more and more people toward this to stand up. All of this could lead to a situation where this illegitimate regime is removed from power. Now that sounds pretty serious to me. Hopefully they're not able to back up their words with actions. I've seen a list of various cities where Antifa protests are planned floating around the internet, but I felt that it was important to go right to the source. According to refusefascism.org, this is the official list of cities where the activists will be gathering on November 4th. Austin, Atlanta, Boston, Chicago, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Honolulu, Indianapolis, LA, Minneapolis, New York, Omak, Philadelphia, Pittsfield, Portland, Salem, San Francisco, Seattle, Tucson. Let us hope that none of these events become violent, but we have seen violence from Antifa on numerous occasions since the election, and this is an organization that says the use of force is eccentric to the political philosophy. The following comes from a startling article in The Hill. Anti-fascist activists or Antifa, increasingly mobilized in the wake of President Trump's election, are unapologetic about what they are described as the necessary use of violence to combat authoritarianism. While both experts on the movement and activists within it emphasize that not everyone who participates in anti-fascist activism engages in violence. They say the use of force is intrinsic to their political philosophy. Hundreds of mass protesters at the University of Minnesota recently conducted a violent protest against a speech by conservative activist and YouTube commentator Lauren Southern. Fights erupted outside the event, forcing police to intervene. Members of the conservative group Collegians for a Conservative Tomorrow, which hosted the event, say they were tagged as xenobi. As set upon by mass Antifa activists who spat on them, hit them, shoved them off bicycles, and maced them. These crazed lunatics actually believe that Donald Trump is a modern-day version of Adolf Hitler, and therefore they believe that the use of violence is justified in order to prevent a new Nazi regime from taking over America. Of course, that is complete and utter nonsense. And in their zeal to attack conservatives, Antifa is actually becoming what they say they hate. If anyone can be characterized as brown shirts, it is the Antifa thugs that are willing to use violence against those who would dare to disgrace with their radical leftist agenda. According to Politico, their increasingly violent tactics have caused the Department of Homeland Security to officially classify their activities as a domestic terrorist violence. Federal authorities have been warning state and local officials since early 2016 that the leftist extremists known as Antifa have become increasingly confrontational and dangerous, so much so that the Department of Homeland Security formally classified their activities as domestic terrorist violence, according to interviews and confidential law enforcement documents obtained by Politico. Are you starting to understand how dangerous these guys are? Because I sure as hell do. I've seen the YouTube videos where people just... The Berkeley rally for perfect prime example. People were beaten, bloodied, mothers and children with their kids at this rally, beaten with anything they could get their hands on. Bicycles, locks, put in a long sock and swung around and smacked across the head. So you realize that they are out of control and they are funded and paid by George Soros. And I'll touch on that in just a moment. And there's actually evidence that the radical leftists have been cultivating ties with Islamic terrorists in the Middle East. The following comes from a report that was published by the Daily Mail. A secret FBI investigation of the violent resistance movement on college campuses against President Trump has led to an alarming discovery that the collusion between American anarchists and foreign terrorists and the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda, according to the confidential informational report by FBI field officers. There is clearly overwhelming evidence that there are growing ties between U.S. radicals and the Islamic State, as well as several ISIS offshoots and splinter groups, stated by the FBI field report, which was delivered to Acting Director Andrew McCabe on July 11, 2017, and which is being published for the first time in my new book, A La War, The Plot to Destroy Trump. An atmosphere of violence and fear creates an environment in which many conservatives are afraid to speak out. In fact, a survey that was just released discovered that 58% of Americans believe the political climate prevents them from sharing their own political beliefs. The Castro 2017 Free Speech and Tolerance Survey, a new national poll of 2,300 U.S. adults, find that 71% of Americans believe the political correctness has silenced important discussions our society needs to have. The consequences are personal. 58% of Americans believe the political climate prevents them from sharing their own political beliefs, the report follows. Democrats are unique, however. In that slim majority, 53% do not feel the need to self-censor. Conversely, strong majorities of Republicans, 73%, and independents, 58%, say they keep some political beliefs to themselves. But this is not what our founders intended. Freedom of speech is in the Bill of Rights for a reason, because without it, we would be in a world of trouble. As the radical left becomes more violent, we need to become bolder than ever. As for me, I will continue to speak out about what we need to do to turn this country around. No matter how crazy they get, we can never allow Antifa to intimidate us. We are in a battle for the future of America. The fate of our children and our grandchildren is hanging in the balance, which is completely true. The radical left must not win, because if they do, they will transform our society into a totalitarian socialist utopia that will look nothing like the nation that our forefathers originally founded. And that article was written and published by Michael Snyder, and he shared it with Zero Hedge. Now, I want to touch base with how Antifa is paid by George Soros. One second while I get... This is from a source called Shadowproof, and this was published February 25th, 2017. I was a professional anarchist paid by super rich liberal George Soros to bring Trump down. Weeks into the presidency of a buffoonish but vicious tyrant, I felt compelled to take off my black bandana, hooded sweatshirt, and kick off my steel-toed boots to reveal myself to the people. This is especially for those who believe the U.S. is faced with an uprising led by professional anarchists and paid protesters. They are right in this communique. I will unmask myself, and thus in doing so, there will be truth. I can say that they are correct, because I was hired by New York hedge fund manager and elite liberal sugar daddy George Soros to personally chair an anarcho commission of agitators. We were asked to treat our work like that of a corporation. The more franchises we could start in cities across America, the more likely we will be able to tear down Donald Trump. But the only problem is, Soros is a bitch-ass dick stain. That MRFer promised to pay me $2,000 a week and give me health insurance. He promised to set up a retirement account. He even promised to give me sizable bonus at the end of the year. But after the inauguration, when it was time to be paid, no check came in the mail. It was almost the end of February, and still no check has come. I have receipts from traveling to Washington, D.C. that I need reimbursed. I have student loans from my left-wing revolutionary studies major to pay off, asshole. So I am violating the non-disclosure agreement I signed to expose Soros' professional anarchist dealings, which are aimed at undermining the most vicious and most brutal capitalist empire in the world. This is his words. The left-wing billionaire financier told us during our weekly office meeting on January 12th in a high-rise building in Manhattan that Trump will be a dictator if we let him get away with it. He said I have bags of commie pinko cash lying around his palace. He said, help yourself to it, and if you need more money, just say, Viva Zapata. Soros left, and we brainstormed how to foment rebellion, so America would never be great again. How we would brand ourselves, who are anarcho-competitors, were our market analysis when factoring influence of other left-wing billionaires. Paying protesters was how many laws we could break, and whether we could rely on crowbars or bolt cutters to advance upon the Gestapo-like police force that would amass to protect Trump. We came to a consensus. After smashing a few sheets of glass that found objects or fragments of the capitalist state would be wielded by our Antifa brothers and sisters to tear them down, the artifice maintained by the filthy rich. Let me tell you, comrades, I was on the street when the Nazi pigfucker Richard Spencer. Wow. Excuse me, this is just what I'm reading. I'm so sorry for that. Was punched in the face. It went viral, and Soros talked to me on the radio. I had back at the flat in the Barzier corner of D.C. We blasted the video out to anarchist consultorium, stakeholders, and those who have prime investments in affinity bookstores, as well as left-wing boards of dictators in charge of liberal college, university syndicates, and the trend of punching Nazis was born. And we were celebrated by hoisting our black flags into the air. We will beat back the white fascists with our strength of 1,000 black horses, our collective proclaim. But it's the middle of February, and F you, George. I have comrades who had to outrun the pigs coming at them with pepper spray. I have comrades who showed off their training skills from our anarcho boot camps deep in the forest of Oregon. Comrades leap 4 and 5 feet to snatch flags of white supremacy from the hands of agents of provocateurs. They've had the pigs to tie them up and toss them in jail for what, George? The black blood of anti-fascism flows deep within, and George has gotten plenty of bang for his buck. This could have been a bigger year for radical anarchism. Our will to violence was but stressed by our black sky thinking. We had a battle rhythm that would power us into the leadership of the Democratic Party. And now George won't be above board with me. Who shuts shit down? We shut shit down. Who forms autonomous networks with bullish outlooks that give the resistance a bleeding edge? We form autonomous networks with bullish outlooks that give the resistance a bleeding edge. But George, I'm broke. I'll have to turn to state-sponsored subversion through the global capitalist industrial complexes, penetrated by the interwebs of deep state crisis actors who are hell-bent on silent fascist groups designed to put pressure on the human synthesis that we need to focus upon for our collective liberation. So there you go. There you have it, folks. I want to... One last thing that could confirm this. That he is paying them. And that is, if you can recall what happened in Las Vegas last month, that is a major false flag. Before the false flag attack took place at Mandalay Bay, a week prior, George Soros bet $42 billion short against the stock share holdings of the MGM. A few days after the false flag attack occurred, that is still a major cover-up, and I'm gonna bring more light to that. I have some breaking stuff that could probably shock you. But a few days after, reports came out that George Soros dumped $18 billion into his Open Society Foundation. With a B. Can you see the parallel connection? Can you connect the dots together? Can you put the puzzle piece in that spot on the puzzle? So I speculate for a second. Did he make out $18 billion by losing 42? If he lost 42 million, did he get a payout of 18 billion to put into his foundation? It's just a thought. Just a thought. A thought that's worth checking into and trying to find the connection. Now, if I sounded a little surprised when I was reading that last article, because I was unaware that there was Antifa. I'm not from Oregon, I'm not from Portland, but I live here. And I have my family here. But I had no clue. And I'm gonna try and find these camps that are in Oregon that Antifa uses as boot camps for training. So be careful. Another thing I want to mention when I first started off this broadcast is when I was reading the article from Zero Hedge. The list of cities that they are going to be in just 3 days. Most of those cities, Portland and Seattle, I know for a fact, are left-wing, demonic, liberal, Democrat, scumbag cities. Social justice warrior, progressive, socialists. And they're ran by the same titles I gave there. Their government officials are the exact same way. Now, I lived here for quite some years, and to confirm that, the scumbag governor, Kay Brown, she's not worth 2 cents. Nothing. But when she had term here, her first term, I think she's up for re-election for actually an election soon. But she has been governor for almost two and a half years now. She was not voted or elected in. She was put in place by DC. Because there was a controversial scandal going on during 2015 and prior that involved the former governor. So he was out of office and she was put in place. No one voted for her. There was an election held for her. I just thought I'd throw that out there of how the deep state and the shadow government pull the strings. In closing, I want to thank you for tuning in. It means quite a bit that you check out the work that I put out there. In addition, prepare. Prepare for what is coming. Prepare for what's coming on the 4th and thereafter. Because Antifa said it themselves, they are not going to quit. But there are other events in the works that are designed to destabilize humanity in the U.S. and across the globe. There's a multitude of things that they are planning. And they're not going to quit. Like I mentioned before, they will not quit until Trump is out of office and dead. It's one thing they want him out, but they hate him so much that they want him dead. And his family dead. They've threatened his entire family. And it's been publicly known that they threatened his entire family because people have reported on the status updates across social media platforms that have threatened himself and his family. So prepare. Get your ducks in a row. You don't have to necessarily get your bug out and survival needs from a supplier that specializes in that. You can buy them anywhere. You can buy emergency food supplies at your local store. You can buy water filters at Sporting Goods. You can buy shelters at Sporting Goods. You can buy your stuff on Craigslist. But get that stuff in order. Get your medical supplies, emergency food, shelter. Have a plan to evacuate the city when that shit hits the fan scenario actually goes down. Because you do not want to be in no FEMA camp. I guarantee you. If you think I'm bluffing and think I'm joking, just look up what happens in FEMA camps. And to start off with that, look up the documentation, the declassified document. You want to start off with Rex 84. You can even download it in a PDF format. Look up Rex 84. Look at the Civilian Inmate Labor Force Program. That is also a declassified document. And look at the Army Training Manual, FM 39.-10. Those documents right there, their own words, tell you how they are going to create camps in this country to put those political dissidents, whatever, because the top list is returning veterans. And this is on the FBI's most wanted, top 10 list. Returning veterans, conservatives, Christians, those that speak out against the government. You don't necessarily have to be one of those, but if you speak out against the official story, the official narrative, the policies, if you don't agree with them, and you speak out against it, you don't have to be on the street holding a sign. You can do it online. There are the most top of the top. It's on the DHS Homeland Security website. It's on the FBI's website. And this isn't on Trump per se. This was put in place well before he was even even in office. To a more current event, look at Harvey. Look at the FEMA camp site. You can probably still find the YouTube videos of FEMA camp on Harvey and Jose. So prepare. I want to thank you for tuning in. appreciate all you stopping by and checking this out. Prepare. Survive another day. God bless, and don't be caught up in the matrix.